Welcome everyone, today I have a new build guide for Diablo 4. Now this is a theoretical build that I've been working on and also testing, but I want to show you guys what is available and what can potentially be a great build. Now at the second part I'll explain why this build is not great at the moment, because we're using companions, and companions damage is not the best in terms of the Druid, and this is still not adjusted with the latest buffs. So because you guys might have seen with the latest patch notes, the companion scaling damage and also the passive damage have been buffed, and I decided to make an infinite companion reset build which allows us to use lucky hit and also proccing with the earthen bulwark to reset the skills of the companions. So as you can see over here, we constantly reset all three of the companions, which give us poison, disable, vulnerability, and also more damage with the warps. We can summon up to 3 warps, or 4 warps with the new gems. So in this season, we can get up to 4 warps with the new Malignant Heart. And this makes us extra durable with the bulwark, and also we can reset the companions very often, as you can see over here. And in terms of survivability, we're quite tanky because we can use the injury effect damage reduction with Earthen Bulwark. Now, what is some of the downsides and also positives about this build? So the pros and cons, right? Well, one of the pros about this build is that you were capitalizing on the power of Earthen Bulwark, which in the Season 1 at the moment, it is still very powerful. You can see that I have removed a lot of my damaging spells for Earthen Bulwark and also resetting this with my Storm spells, but we're still resetting this a lot of times. It still does a lot of damage. In fact, it was doing like not over 90% of damage of the build with Earthen Bulwark. On top of this, you're getting a lot of effects with the companions. So this build potentially can be very powerful in the future patches where they actually adjust the damage for the companions. Because as I'll show you guys in the later stage of this particular build, we're still very weak with companions as a Druid. And in terms of the weaker part of the build is that the companions damage is not scaling and not dealing enough damage. I'm using the Storm Pants, which is a special unique to give me more damage and also Lightning Werewolves. But that in itself is still not enough to deal the most of the damage. And in terms of the scaling for the companions, I have gotten my wolves to level 16. So just to show you guys in-game footages over here. So here, currently we're sitting on level 16 with the wolves. I can get the wolves to level 19. Even with that much leveling, we're still not doing enough damage. Because it seems to me that the companions are scaling on the damage purely from the companion skill damage. It is not benefiting other effects like the close damage, like the other damages that we can enjoy like as the character. And as you're gonna see in the replays, the companions are also not benefiting from the Wealth for Heart like the Barbara. So the companions damage will be dealt instantly, and this in reality for this season makes the companions a little bit weaker. So you can see over here, they're not dealing the Barbara's damage, and also they're doing the basic damage without any major scaling. Now of course, I also tested the companions build in terms of tier 100 with 154 level monsters. Because we're much weaker in terms of the choice of items, because we're not using a defensive pants, we're actually much more squishy. So you can see a bit of footage of me testing this build in tier 100. We can still do it with a bulwark's damage, but we're not that tanky because of the pants and also the helmet. And in terms of the uniqueness about this build, I feel is that the companions has to do enough damage to justify the replacement of my other skills. And over here you can see it is not a great build for tier 100. Now I know it's quite rare that I talk about the weakness of the build before we start going to the builds, right? So this is why I want to share with you guys that this is a warning, guys. With this particular build, it is not the strongest build or the best build for the Druid in the Season 1, simply because the scaling and also the damage for the companions are not realized. But in the future, if this does become handy and also great, this can be very powerful as a potential build for Season 2 or Season 3 with a rage adjustment of the companions. So coming over to the Mobilityx builder for my companions reset build. And yes guys, at the end of the video, I'll provide you guys with a full replay of the testing highlights, and also you get to see all the gears I was using for this replay, and also legendary effects. Now in the moment, the build itself is quite straightforward. I have made this build out of the previous build I made with the no unique build with a bulwark build. So the concept is that I'm using a bulwark reset to adjust for the potential of resetting of the companions. And what I'll do is, because you guys can look at the previous video and the guide for this particular build, and 80% of it is similar to the bulwark build, what I want to highlight is the changes of this build. So right away, we're not using a weapon that provides us with earth spell damage for 20%. Let me stop this for a moment. And what we're doing is we're providing ourselves with one additional companion and also dealing 26% more companions damage. On the offhand over here, we're getting the wolf companions to become, the werewolf companions, and this also deals additional 115% more damage. We're not using rabies, so we don't really do much of the spreading. Everything else is actually similar to my previous bulwark build, and this allows me to still deal the most damage with bulwark over here and enjoy all the passive effects. Now together with the companions and the bulwark, you can tell this build is not optimized at the moment, because I am not using the companions for the major source of damage, but rather I'm testing whether the companions can be resetted constantly and if we are strong enough to survive both of the early, mid game and even to the late game. Now in terms of the highlights for the build, we're currently using the Storm's Companion, which allows us to have more companion damage and also additional 4 ranks to the wolves. So here I am using the Storm's Companion, and this provides me with about 66.8% more companion movement speed, which I have no idea what is that for, right? Well, the AI for the companion is not the best. And in terms of the highlights for my companions with the Spirit Boom, we're going with a Pack Leader, which allows us to constantly reset the companion's cooldown with a critical strike on the lucky hit. And this happens very often, and I do believe this is a highlight if you want to try min build. But you're gonna see in the videos, we don't do that much damage with the companions. And I warned you guys, if you want to try this build, it's more of a min build. Now in terms of the gems, we're still using the Inexorable Force, which pulls enemies together with the Barber, which currently does not work for the companions, to deal more damage with Earth and Bulwark. And finally, we're using the Moon Rage, which allows us to have a chance of summoning additional wolves and also provide us with +3 ranks to the wolves. And this is how we get to level 16 or level 19 with the companions. Now if we come over to the skill tree for the companions build, I'm currently using the Storm Strike to provide us with a constant reset of the cooldown reduction for the Earth and Bulwark. And this also provides us with damage reduction and also vulnerability. In terms of the other choices, we're going with Critical Strike against close enemies, max level to the Earth and Bulwark, and also we're maximum level on the wolves and also the ravens. I decided to not go with the Poison Creepers as a major source of damage, but you can try that as well. Well, they don't do that much, to be honest. So if we come over to my game, I think it's better I show you guys over here. So you can see a level 16 on the wolves and a level 9 on the ravens. We can get 3 more levels with Amulet, but during the time of the recording of this video, trading was disabled, and I was not able to get new amulets for this build. So if I were able to get a new amulet, which I lost my old one, I can get the wolves to level 16 to level 19. Now we are still expecting a lot of points into the earthing spells, so this build is likely going to be an earth build together with the companions, and together we're doing the more damage with nature spells with Earth and Bulwark. We're using the Purify skill to provide us with more control and also putting enemies together to provide us with more damage in terms of critical strike damage. And of course we're using Nature's Fury, which will reset the Earth and Bulwark and any of the Storm and also Earth spells. We're not going with Bestow Rampage. Even though there's a legendary that allows us to give the companions those effects, I don't think this is a game changer. With a reset of the Earth and Bulwark, we're doing more damage and also having more survivability. Now if we come over to the Paragon board, I would recommend having a look at the previous video build. We're following almost this Paragon point to point, and I have updated this one. So what I've done is I have over here reinserted the Companion Skills gem, which allows us to do more damage with more intelligence. Now this gem was previously the other gem. So if you go back to this video, this gem was previously a different gem that used willpower. So I adjusted a little bit over here for the paragons for my previous build. And you can see we're hitting over 109% companion skill damage, but that is not enough, because there's not enough scaling for the companions at the moment for Diablo 4 for the Druid. Now in terms of everything else, it is pretty straightforward. We're still maximizing the critical strike damage and in terms of vulnerability damage and any of the barrier damage and also damage reduction, which is still a very good build for any of the stage of the game. Whether you're playing in the mid game or playing in the end game, this bulwark build can still work, even though it's using companions. Now briefly going through the skill rotations for this theoretical build. Yes, I'm not recommending you guys to go deep into this build because I'm still waiting for the buffs to the companions for the Druid. But ideally, you want to be casting your Earth and Bulwark before you engage with enemies. If you do get yourself below 35% HP, it is also really good. Now, I haven't really talked about the legendary choices and also the effects, and also FXs, because they're very similar to my previous build, and I recommend going back to that video to look at those effects. In this replay, I have also provided you guys with a list of the items I'm using for this particular build, and you can see majority it is similar to my previous build. Now, in terms of the companion reset, it is quite straightforward. Because you're always hitting enemies with multiple sources, as long as you can get a critical strike and with high enough lucky hit chance, you can be resetting your companions, and this is very important. So, here I got an immunity barrier as well. So what you do is you want to start your companions with the vein crawlers and also the ravens, which provide you with more critical chance and also vulnerability. Finish them off with the werewolves to reset them with the active werewolves. Now, of course, this build does not do that much damage. So what I want to do over here is, I'll show you guys briefly over here that we're using the Companion's passive to see how much damage we can deal, and it is not the highest. You can see they're doing the minimal damage because you're not getting all the scalings from our character. And I did a little bit testing over here, so if you guys want to have a look at the replays, which I provide for you guys now, you can have a look at the replays of me fighting about tier 51 dungeon with very ease with this particular build. And most of the damage is done by the Earthen Bulwark though, so waiting for the buff for the companions to make this really work. And in terms of the werewolves, they do decent damage, well, you know, some damage. Yeah, it's a little disappointing. I knew about this. Even after the buffs, I don't think they'll be that strong. But the concept and also idea for this build is that we can reset companions. And the moment, you know, Blizzard developers decide to make the companions active and also work, this can be very good in terms of a build in the future.
Just wait a moment. I'm not ready yet. Bags are full. ready yet.
Now, if you guys haven't subscribed, it is a really good time to do so, because I'll be covering tons of Diablo 4 related topics and also videos and also guides. We'll be looking to the top meta builds, non-meta builds, leveling up, and also Paragon tricks. We're also looking to the latest events and also official updates, and also changes to different characters and also different builds in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and also turn the notification on, because a lot of you who are watching the videos have not subscribed. You can see 80% of the viewers who are watching our videos have not subscribed, so make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for the latest update for Diablo 4.